Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about hype cycles. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how do I fight the hype cycle bias? My brain wants to explore stuff and not be using stuff. It is a very depressing situation. Well, basically you can't fight it. It's impossible because it's an emotional response that you have to something that excites you. It would be like trying to figure out how to not fall in love with someone or how to not hate someone or hate something. It's an emotional thing. It's why some people get very excited to see you, and some people want to go and do this thing over here. They want to go traveling and so forth. But some people, they just want to read a book. Like you sing, that's an emotional trigger that you get, and this is something that happens to everybody in one way or another. Everybody has something that excites them, and you can't really fight it. Like you can, I'll tell you the only thing that I know works, and it's unfortunately a very unfulfilling thing. Uh, but overall, you can't really fight it. The only medicine that there is towards this, like getting on the hype train with everybody else and doing the thing. Well, it's not. There's nothing bad with being on a hype train as long as you know what you're doing. As long as you understand that you are indulging something, you're excited about something, and you understand when to buy into something and when not to buy into something, and when to do something because and when being like be. This is probably the best advice that I can ever give. That I can give. When it's okay to be on a hype train, as long as you understand that you are on the hype train and that you understand and you're honest with yourself and you realize that you're going to try to justify using this thing. And when you have the personal maturity to make decisions that are good for the project and understand that being on a hype train does not necessarily equate to that this is a good thing for the product. When you can make that distinction between what's right for you and what's fun and exciting for you and what's good for the project, then you can go on every hype cycle. Just jump on the bandwagon every single time because you're no longer a threat to whatever you're doing. So what I argue needs to happen is basically that in order for you to beat this thing, you need to become a bitter old senior. And that doesn't mean that you have to be tired of life. It just means that you have to go on enough hype trains and see them blow up in your face, and remember the pain of getting things wrong. When you get to that point, you will stop going on the hype train and you will become more conservative. Usually it's the same thing with, I mean, that's part of growing up. When you're younger, you're a teenager or whatever, like everything is exciting, well, I'm not saying that everything is exciting, because I remember being bored out of my mind as a teenager as well, but you think about things differently. The older you and more experienced you get, usually your way of looking at things changes. And the same thing goes for here. When you get experienced enough, you will realize when something is a good idea and when something is a bad idea. And you won't be as inclined to be swept up by the talk, if that makes sense. And the only thing I can give you that's going to kind of work, it's going to be unfulfilling, is to follow a bunch of rules that you only might be following due to, well, you might logically understand them, but you won't really feel the wisdom of those rules until you get to be more experienced. What I mean by that is basically, if I tell you, as an example, when I say, you've heard me say this before, that my only real big rule is to create disposable solutions. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you should be able to throw away the code that you write at any moment. And that is, you mean, you might think that you understand what that means, and sure, if you're an experienced person, you will. If you're a junior developer, it might be something that sounds kind of logical, that you can change your mind whenever you want, but you won't feel it. You won't really feel it in your bones how useful that thing is until you have been in enough situations where you simply don't have that option, and you realize how big how much of a difference it makes when you can throw away things versus when you can't, and how many problems get solved, and how like that thing, like the words that I am giving you now, I've earned that wisdom through pain and suffering, which is like they're the best teachers when it comes to fighting hype trains and like getting experience and all this good stuff. That is what that's why I can say these words and understand them in a way that is satisfying to me, and it affects the way that I do my work. In the beginning you can't do that because you don't have the emotional you don't, okay, you have an emotional response to things that are new. You don't have an emotional response to wisdom. And that's the trade-off. That's the thing you're going to get over time. But in order for you to get there, you have to start somewhere, and that's why you read most likely all of these books about best practices, and you listen to more senior experiences and so forth, and you're doing all the right things. It's just that it's going to take you time until you realize the wisdom in the words of these more experienced developers who are giving you all these rules to follow, because those rules that they give you are based on their experiences. But you don't have those experiences, so all you can do is follow the rule until you see that it's actually true, and in some cases it's not going to be true, and then you're going to realize that, hey, you have your own rules that are filled with wisdom, and then hopefully you will sit on your own YouTube channel and give those things away. So what I want you to take away from this is that you can't fight hype cycle bias, because it's an emotional response to something that excites you. It's no different from you seeing someone who's attractive or being angry at something. It's an emotional thing, and you can train yourself to be less emotional. Some people are more emotional and some people are less emotional, but you can't really fight it if it's something that you feel. What I can tell you is that it gets better over time. Get on the hype train enough times and you will start to realize that not every hype train is a good ride. And when you feel the pain for long enough, you will start to realize how much it's a good, like, to what extent is it a good idea to get on the hype train, and when should you just not get on it because you can already spot that it's probably a bad idea. And until that time, simply try to follow the rules that other developers have given you. You might not feel the wisdom in those words, but try to follow them if they're good, and before you know it, you will start to realize if they're actually wise words or if you have better rules that suit your situation better. And for this specific case, I'll give you the same old wise wisdom words that I have given away 100 times before. If you want to fight hype cycle bias, simply realize that you are on the hype train. It's okay to be on the hype train. Don't feel any shame. Play with all the tools, play with all the toys, but understand the difference between what's right for you and your personal enjoyment and what's right for the project. If you can make that distinction without letting one fall over into the other one, you're safe. Get on every hype train until it's no longer fun to be on them. Have a great day.